I have the pleasure now of introducing tonight's keynote speaker, Dr. Cochav Elkayam-Levy. She is an expert on international law, human rights, and feminist theories. She is the recipient of the 2024 Israel Prize in Solidarity, a senior research fellow at the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem, teaches at Reichman University, and served as a Sophie Davis postdoctoral fellow at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Those are just some of her credentials. On October 7, 2023, we watched in horror at the indescribable scenes coming out of Israel during and after the horrific attack by Hamas terrorists. On October 8th, still reeling from the atrocities we saw via the GoPro cameras worn by some of the attackers, our world as Jews shrunk immeasurably as alliances crumbled and Hamas sympathizers seized the moment to celebrate their victory. In the days, weeks, and months since then, as more information is shared, the realization that the world will never know the full extent of the atrocities committed that day and those taken against the people who were kidnapped, many of whom remain in the hands of Hamas. It was in this light that Cochav established and continues to lead the Civil Commission on October 7th crimes by Hamas against women and children. Please join me in welcoming her to our stage.
Wow. Thank you so much. Dear sisters, friends, seekers of justice, I stand before you tonight with humility and pride, truly honored to receive this recognition from such an inspiring community of women whose moral courage has long been a lighthouse in turbulent seas, and whose strength has changed me from a very young age. This award, bearing the name of Dr. Jane Evans, who fought for Jewish women's voices to echo across the walls of power, reminds us that justice is not only a cause, it is a legacy, a calling. Sometimes it's even a calling we do not choose, but one that chooses us. Sorry. And when I look at all of you tonight, it is also clear to me that the fight for justice is profoundly a Jewish calling, strongly tied to our history, our identity, and the stories that have shaped and formed who we are. We come from a people who have known suffering, yet resisted and rebuilt. From our foremothers to Miriam and Devorah, who led with wisdom, compassion, and courage, to Esther, who dared to speak truth in peril, to Emma Lazarus, who envisioned liberty and freedom so beautifully as a welcoming mother, opening her arms to the weary. I read her words again this week and felt how deeply they reflect the moral values our world so desperately needs. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. To Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who broke barriers with grace and grit, and to so many others. A legacy of Jewish women that have never waited for permission to act. They dared to lead, and by doing so, they showed us the way. We have reason, again and again, because we know injustice cannot be met with silence. that our identity is not a burden, but a light, and that to speak the truth is often a walk in a very narrow path, sometimes lit only by our convictions and our inner beliefs. Since October 7th, we've all changed and felt the urgent need to act. We have truly lived through a rupture, a historic, existential, and deeply personal. Yesterday, as I listened to so many of you here, I found myself in tears, reflecting what we have been through and the struggles that still lay ahead. I felt overcome by the weight of what we have endured, the grief, the abandonment, the rise in anti-Semitism, and the fight we still need to carry to protect our freedoms. Thank you for opening your hearts this way. Our stories matter. One of the most fundamental experiences for me from that day was the loss of our most basic sense of security, a feeling of existential threat. I remember after October 7th thinking, where am I going to hide my children? I have 4 children, and I remember having a plan in my head. The little one I'm going to put in the closet, the other ones I'm going to find a way to hide. In the weeks and months that followed, we all faced the challenge of a deep sense of isolation, feeling alone in a way we had never known before. In those first moments, I did not yet know the scale of the horror. I only knew that women's voices, people's voices, were already being buried under hatred, denial, and indifference. So I acted. We acted. I often say that we walked into fire. The most challenging part of our work is the exposure to the traumatizing materials. We stared into evil, in the face of evil, to see what our brothers, sisters, and children had endured. And still we bear witness, despite the toll on our souls. While documenting the sexual atrocities, we also uncovered the torture, the systematic torture of families, revealing a new crime against humanity, a crime without a name. I often say that if there is hell, this is how it looks like, someone abusing your kids. And we were able to see this, almost physically unable to bear witness. We found ourselves giving a name to evil, kinocide, kin as in familial relation and side as in the systemacity of it. The Civil Commission was born of a sense of sacred duty, to document what others would deny, to remember what others might try to erase. We did not hesitate, not for a single moment. We chose to believe women and all those who have suffered the worst of crimes, even when powerful forces tried to silence us, even when we became in many ways exiles in the very spaces we once called home. I keep thinking about how we were met not with solidarity, but with suspicion. Our pain was politicized, our Jewishness problematized, our humanity questioned, our Israeli identity, shaped by history, resilience, and a longing for peace, was treated not as a testament to survival, but as a mark of blame, as if we deserved it. For many of us, this was a second shattering, and it still breaks my heart. I often wonder if I'll ever be able to fully understand the silence and denial we encountered and continue to feel. I just know that we have an obligation not to forget, not to push aside our experiences and to return to the comfort of familiar spaces. We must continue to demand empathy, recognition, understanding, and carry pride in our identities as Israelis, as Jews, as women. Because if we don't, we risk internalizing shame and self-hatred. One of the things that gives me hope from that place of exile, from that sense of isolation, was the home we found in each other. We turn to one another with love, with care, with new sisterhood. We chose to stand tall, to support each other, to grieve together, and we also found many brave moral allies, those who risk everything to stand by our side. We are forging new paths, reclaiming our identities, not merely as Jews, not only as women, but as leaders. We carry the responsibility to hold on to hope. I tell it to every woman and every person here tonight, and to fight for a future worthy of our children and our communities. Lastly, I want to say that this award is not mine alone. It belongs to the women and children whose voices were shattered by violence and whose stories we carry with dignity and determination. After October 7th, we took upon ourselves not only the task of documentation, but the moral obligation of bearing witness and giving voice to the victims. We continue to fight to preserve the historical truth and their memory. We insist that justice be done. I have spent my life fighting for justice and human rights, and I have long understood that justice is not a given. It is a demand. It requires moral clarity, courage, and a deep belief in our inner truth. It demands that we confront systems that failed to protect the most vulnerable. We acted because justice cannot exist without recognition, and healing cannot begin without belief. Victims must be believed. To deny their suffering is to dehumanize and isolate them. In this context, silence is not neutral. It is another form of violence. I am profoundly grateful to the extraordinary team of the Civil Commission. Their work is rigorous, courageous, and grounded in empathy and solidarity. The sacrifices that they make, the values that they uphold, these are acts of justice in their own right. And I thank you, women of the Reform Judaism, for this honor. Your recognition affirms that the pursuit of justice, especially for women and children in the wake of atrocity, is not a legal imperative. It is a legacy of freedom, deep empathy, and love. This is why we continue our work. And every time you support us, every time you reach out, raise your voice, or stand by our side, you remind us that we are not alone. There is a saying in Pirkei Avot that has echoed in my heart again and again these recent weeks, perhaps because it holds both the weight and the hope of these difficult times. It is not upon you to finish the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. I believe Dr. Jane Evans understood this deeply. She knew that fighting for justice and freedom is a long, often exhausting journey, but also a profound privilege. And I truly believe we continue our legacy, not in our shadow, but in our light. We have lost much, but we will prevail. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.